Hey guys, apologies for the delay, but I'm back, and this week it's the recap of the Highland Brawl, the yearly tournament in Scotland organised by Trash Panda. It's not a huge tournament. Scotland is hardly huge in anything except for hills and sheep, but it's a staple in my Infinity calendar. So in this video I'll do my usual battle report style and talk over the 3 rounds, talk about what I played and how well I done, then a wee retrospective of my lists and the day as a whole at the end. Remember to like and subscribe for more. Let's talk about the event and the event space. The Highland Brawl is a one-day event in Stirling, Scotland, which means 3 rounds, and it ran from about 10:30 in the morning to about 6 or 7 p.m. It was a lovely day in Stirling, but I spent it inside. It was a busy overall with a Marvel, Crisis Protocol and some Star Wars card game tournament on at the same time. In our tournament we played Supplies, Evacuation and the Brawl. A good spread of missions with a lot to do beyond random slaughter, except the last one. That's the intent though. It was a rather small tournament with only 10 people, but I did meet a few people from the broader community who were at the MCP tournament. Apologies if I was a little absorbed by the game. You caught me right at the end of a long day, turn 2 in the final game, and a bit of a Gordian knot to unpick. It was lovely chatting with you, and hopefully I can get some games with you. Everyone was lovely that day and brought their A game, and from what I heard it was a good 15 games. The tables had been on screen now, and it was a good variety. You might recognise some from last year, as people have brought tons of their own terrain. They all look fantastic, and with that, let's start with round 1. First game was against JSA. The map is like so, and I've played on this terrain before casually for looting and sabotage. I am using my Knight Hospitaller list, although unlike the 2 from the IGL tournament back in January and February, this will largely be the same without the second Trin, Pathfinder and Knight of Justice, and will instead use the Escort Sergeant, Montesa with a Knight of Santiago and Harris. A pretty solid list overall. Deployment on this map wasn't tough, but it wasn't great either, as I had elected to go first and there were some solid sightlines I forgot about, and it did end up coming up later. I did know GSA couldn't shoot for shit, so I definitely brought the biggest gun with my Harris of Knights on the right and my Montesa and the Core on the left with the Escort Sergeant. I knew I had to be cautious with 3 min-6 camo tokens, and I believe 2 or 3 min-3, which in hindsight are mines, but I didn't know that and should have asked what min-3 camo markers there are or could be in GSA. He brought 2, maybe 3 bikes, with the real threat being Yojimbo. My biggest concern were his min-6 markers and his Samurai Harris. I also picked my 2 cards pretty stupidly, which was Predator against JSA and Spotlight / Forward Observe against a HVT, which wasn't impossible, but very hard to do without a hacker in the Harris. My turn 1, I move up the Harrison trying to bait the min-3 marker, which turns out to be a mine and waste like an order on that. I do eventually reveal and kill the first Ryukin easily, but was really cautious with that heavy rocket launcher's continuous damage. I move the Harris up, and I get really packed in as I place my HVT here in a, to be honest, not great position. I dive the bike across the gap as well and eat 2 wounds, eventually knocking the bike out and revealing at least one of the other Ryukins, which both helps and hinders me, although my doctor would run up and quickly heal him. This leaves me bruised and bunched up. His turn 1 would immediately punish that, running Yojimbo into the box and smoke some lanes to prevent some arrows from my Knight Hospitaller HMG, and then he ran his LT Dormammu into the box and spec-fired an EM grenade, I think on 11s, to catch my Montesa, Santiago and Doctor in one lucky speculative attack. And this is where I would say the game swung in my opponent's favour. I wouldn't say I lost the game here, but it certainly didn't help. I think at this point his Core was also fought and found an angle on my HMG and was rightly pushed back with my BS-14 HMG versus his BS-13 HMG, but it was now looking really rough. My turn 2, I needed to do something, and my best bet was to get the Escort Sergeant across the gap or get something to reset to grab the box in the middle. Not impossible, but not easy. But now I'm not entirely sure of the other operations here, but I move my Teutonic Knight missile launcher and fight the last min-6 marker on the roof. I get fairly lucky and it went straight to dead. I activate again and put 2 shots into the box where his Yojimbo failed to smoke and his Dormammu went straight to dead as well. With this, I would move my HMG to fight the heavy rocket launcher, and I would lose this face-to-face roll and lose my HMG, my last gun, and my Montesa in the blast. This dug-in Ryukin would later cost me the game. I spent the rest of turn 2 unable to cross the gap with a cautious move with 4-4 movement, and I'd be unable to reset the knights in this turn. I couldn't move the 2-knight missile launcher to try and fight, as just the angles wouldn't work. His turn 2 wasn't massive, but it was big enough to move his Argato killer hacking device up to steal the box unopposed, maneuver the core around a little, and push his tankos up slightly. My turn 3 is where I get some decent luck and my doctor manages the reset, which means I can steal a box and retreat, which means I can at least get 2 points so long as I keep it. In order to aid this, I pose my escort sergeant for defense of my box and I put it on to suppressive fire and move the Oxbot up to flame anything that approaches. I also try to lean on my own min-6 and I become a pain with my Trinitarian, putting down a Tanko with an SMG and forcing them back a little. His turn 3 was to basically cement his win, which he did easily as he moved his samurai forward, dodged the mine and got the box. Understanding that knights are kinda durable and now my Knights of Santiago was back after a successful reset against his core, they advanced to get some cards or the box from me. He decided that 2 boxes was enough for a 7-2 win, a fantastic first round and a great game. So what cost me game 1? Well, positioning of the Harris, that was largely it. It caused 3 knights to get soft locked for a crucial time. If I had not rolled a 1, which was very likely, I would have lost 7-0 or potentially more. The Harris had remained intact. I and my opponent largely agree I would have basically and eventually burned through the last 2 Ryukins and probably secured at least the middle box and maybe have sent the bike or sergeant up to tie up his tankos. He could have pushed through it with his tankos and Dormammu duo as well to get the last box, but it would have been tough and a bad dodge could have swapped it to a draw. This overall is not to say that one bad dodge cost me the game, more it killed my momentum and my opponent capitalised on it really well. Even if he didn't, he still had at least one other biker that he didn't use and a core that kind of really didn't do anything except to try and get some classifieds, which I think he succeeded at. Overall, my opponent was the better player and his list was going to live rent-free in my head for a long time. Round 2 was against Toha and it was Evacuation, and this map and mission combo was not great, but we played on it anyway and my opponent chose to go first. I chose this side and to be honest I think that was the right call. With this one I think I did deploy pretty well. I deployed the core to the left and went prone with my Black Friar to avoid being 360 no-scope from the Nicole Sukel. I directly held back the Order Sergeant to counter deploy the Jansar, which did come. Now this wasn't the exact same list I faced last year, but it felt like the same greatest hits. This time though I did have the Teak Balang and the Bulletier to deal with the bioweapon nonsense. Turn 1 he goes first and seizes the initiative. He rushes up with various McCall and Sukel fire teams and turn 1 claims 3 of the 5 HVTs and withdraws but does not score. Quick and exactly what needs to be done. My turn 1 basically responds with move the Oxbot to counter Jansar, but I don't really do it enough. I stand the Blackfire up to watch a lane and counter Jansar. I also fight 2 things with the Bulletier, forcing smoke on one and killing the other. I move the Teak up but don't have enough orders to fight the Sukel Sniper or Nicole Sniper or Jansar due to orders and how the table was really set up. This kind of would be the theme with issues on this table from both of us. Turn 2 is where they push kind of hard with Jansar and kill the Blackfriar, avoiding the Oxbot. My Kingdom for a light shotgun on him. During this, I think he gets the War Core to flash him across the map and he gets stunned. He can, however, run away unmolested as he grabs the 4th civilian. The Teak Balang, who was there to counter him, was too busy being babysat by a McCall, who walked up under smoke and sat in melee with him. He consolidates his civilians and a Liberto runs up and kills my Bulletier. My turn 2 was basically wasted trying to free the McCall and I ended up putting a wound on the Teak. Basically I had been Caesared by my dice. I could have maybe done something to free the Teak like Spotlight and close range shooting, but it just didn't work. If I had the Teak I might have been able to put pedal to the metal and done a lot more damage, but I didn't. I instead pushed up the Montesa to kill some artichokes and try my best to starve him of orders and maybe win a low victory or even a draw if unlikely. Opponents turn 3 and they secure the win. They spend 6 orders teleporting the 4 civilians out and then kills my Teak Balang with a McCall. My Order Sergeant then kills the McCall in ARO. It's my turn 3 and I need to score a point. I spend some orders to revive my tag so I can maybe do something, or maybe for pride. To score points, I spend my limited group 2 orders picking the civilian up and successfully pushing the button to score a point with the Montesa. Understanding that I have now lost and I do not have enough orders to get a HVT or a card, I tried to kill the Liberto that engaged my tech bee, and I just with the melee roll, pushing the teak back to unconscious in the last order of the game. I should have just shot it, but melee called to me. A tough game, but a good one. So looking back at this game, what did me in? I think it was a thrice-fold combo in this order. My opponent had the initiative and very much kept it the entire time, and used it to walk it in turn 3. He played very well and should have won as he tied me up and I spent too many orders undoing the damage. The map was also not great, especially with my fat bases on the tag and 2 active PCs. We should have sat down and adjusted it, but maybe its issues weren't known until after we had played on it. I don't really remember. Other tables did have similar issues. Finally, my dice were turncoats. Even if my dice were slightly better and even if the table was better laid out, I think this game was going to be a loss regardless. My opponent had a plan, executed, and won. Good game, I hope we play again. Round 3 is the Brawl against Tunguska. For those that don't know, the Brawl is a hold the armory, have more buttons pressed, and kill more points in the armory type of mission. This time it is the same table as before, but we drastically fixed it between rounds to make room for the armory and buttons. I am playing the round 1 list, so the Harris is back, but they don't do much. In saying that, playing against an army that you know, I feel like there is a comfort in that. Yeah, they might have BS to pull off, but you probably know what it is. My opponent wins the lieutenant roll with a 15. I roll a 12, which I think is respectable, but no, he crits. In his first turn, he decides to go first and advance up the board with a duo of cursors and park them next to the box and open the door, but refuse to go in. This is bait, but I didn't realise it right now. My turn 1, I push up the escort sergeant and Montesa a little, eventually moving the former into the box. I attempt to isolate a cursor, but I fail due to its fairy dust. Next order, I advance and try, this time throwing the Oxbot forward as well to force a fork. Then, surprisingly, I get hacked from the Spectre in hidden deployment. The following flurry of AROs went like this. The Spectre went to isolate my hacker, so I returned the favour. The cursor shot the Oxbot. This results in the Oxbot dying, the Spectre losing the face-to-face roll, but makes the save. In the end, all this meant that he didn't get any points because the kill was from outside the box when he shot the bot. I activate my Harris and in one volley of the HMG, I kill the Spectre dead. While he died in vain, he did pose a big threat, so I'm very happy he went down quickly. To cap out the rest of the turn, I pushed the 2 buttons closest to me and avoided a secure Tate core. And I take a point for holding the room. His turn 2 puts me on the spot, moving his 2 Kreisas into the box where he swiftly ends the escort sergeant, scoring him 18 points. He puts his interventor in as well and pushes the central button. This complements the other buttons he's pressed in turn 1 and 2. Now this is the big thing I had to overcome. There is an Uber hacker in the middle of the box and now 2 wound mimetic heavy infantry in suppressive fire. My turn 2 is tricky. I need to dig out some really tough pieces and I'm expecting a wipeout now. First thing first is that I need to remove the hacker, so I activate my missile launcher, advance him up, duel his Fuhrback Tate and get very lucky and catch it beyond 32 and convert him into red paste. I advance my missile launcher up, sight the interventor and not a cursor, and I throw 2 solid shots on him for him to crit on a 10, dodge prone and avoid loss of lieutenant. Unfortunately, I can't get an angle on a Kreisa beyond 24 inches, so I have to try something else. That something else for now, and unfortunately just within 16 inches, would be a Knight Hospitaller, and I would lose a wound in the face-to-face roll. 5 on 8s versus 3 on 10s. Not a great roll. Dealing another way to win, I advance the Montesa to steal his button, but I realise I'm too fat for some allies, and I send the trends up to do the job. I also forget I need to decharge a building, but this eventually works out in my favour. Opponent's turn 3, he removes the Uber hacker from the box to walk it up to kill my Trinitarian, or well, zone of control and spotlight the Trinitarian, and then guided missile strike it. I call a reset because honestly it ends my suffering either way, and I roll I think a 9 or something, and he somehow rolls a 19. Honestly, I was shocked. I didn't expect it to happen. Either way, he finishes the job by wiping out the Trinitarian with the Inventor, who just combi rifles me to death and retakes that button. I now remind myself that I was meant to do a classified and kick myself. The Kreisas do nothing. It's still my match to not lose. Turn 3, I spent a moment and try to unpick this Gordian knot. I then come to the stunning conclusion that motorbikes go brrr and charge the Montesa into meleeing the Kriza. If I can get one knight into melee with a Curza, I can send another light in, kill the other and score some points. Even if one dies, I can probably eke out more points for the win. Plan decided, I rush the Montesa into melee looking for 17s to crit, and I get shot 6 times, all on damage 15. I win the face-to-face roll with one Kriza and then make 3 saves nullifying the second. The Kriza then saves 2 DA shots, and after the dust is settled, nothing is dead. Although, now if the other one wants to react to the next attack, he'll be on a -9 to hit me. So, I melee the first one again, killing him, and then I fling myself to the other side of the room and melee the other, killing him, and with that, essentially winning the game. I can safely push the button, decharge my building, and win 7-2. That was a wild game, and we both thoroughly enjoyed it. We talked it through, and I was blunt about the fact that besides a Hail Mary, I did not have a solution to his 2 Curzas, as he had put fairy dust on them, and I would have had to drag a repeater over or use marker state to dig them out. And it was touch and go. I expected the Montesa to die, but it luckily didn't. The Interventor also delayed me, as I would have had to sneak up on it and blast it with guns to actually get it close to the box. It was a huge missed opportunity when he walked it out the door, and it might have cost him the game. Although, thanks for the great game, I really hope we get another one soon. First things first, I thoroughly enjoyed myself. I lost 2 very good games, but I got my one win that I always want from a tournament. So scores in the doors, how did I do? Well, with only 1 win, I came 8th with 5 OP, 7 VP, and 647 points left alive for me, which I think is respectable. I could have done better, but I'm happy enough with it. For my prize, I went and got myself a Grand Master patch that I'll attach to my new hobby bag. I also bought a Chatteroid and Dakini to be part of my Tunguska force. Maybe not the Chatteroid, but I really like that sculpt. Mission-wise, supplies is a classic. I have no issues. Evacuation, though, I can understand the complaints, although I think I need another game on a better map to really get an understanding for the mission. Finally, the Brawl, a custom mission made by Pander that had a split focus that honestly really tied in together around the central box. Definitely one I want to play again, as I really enjoyed it. List-wise, I think I had some good aspects, but currently with MO, I feel like I'm really happy with the faction. I'm just missing that last thing from my list. The Knight Hospitaller, that is. So let's talk about the good points. The core remains solid. I didn't hack anything with that hacker, but it existed. I think unless I bring an advancing repeater like a Pathfinder, Peacemaker, or Billeteer, it's going to be relegated to DZ defense. My lieutenant was, as always, never in any danger, and if it had been, it probably would have been fine. The ARO PCs weren't great as ARO PCs, but better as active turn PCs and line of fire threat. Jansar ate the Blackfire, sure, but it could have held off something. The Teutonic Knight, though, is my man of the tournament with 4 kills and nearly a 5th. It blew through a Ryukin, Yojimbo, Dormu, and a secure Tate Fuhrback, which in all cases really helped me break the board in my favour and enabled me to do something. I think he will remain a staple. The Curator in a core, which I brought in my tag list, I probably won't do again. It saved me like 17 points, but I was not a massive fan of it since I couldn't walk around and just engineer the tag. I had to gizmo kit it and the Billeteer, which cost me 1 and made the other one a bit more tense than I'd liked. So I think I might keep that separate. Let's talk about the last 2 solo pieces before I talk about my big guns. The Escort Sergeant done a grand total of not much, but I felt that was largely due to my positioning. Its zone of control and bot combo makes me want to keep trying it, especially if I give up the Knight of Justice in the main Harris. Even then, it still costs me a Trinitarian. The Montesa was pretty good at eating like 3 heavy rocket launcher shots before dying for good. He scored me points in evac and killed a bunch of Toha. And finally in the Brawl, he scored me 110 kill points in the box and won me the game. So it's a nice piece and a good to have a specialist, but I hate him with the boring shotgun. He did kill a lot of Toha with the template mode, but I'd really like it if he was a specialist with burst. Even just a combi rifle. In saying that, the duo with the Billeteer solves a lot of my complaints with the Montesa as it brings burst, but a second bigger base. It also keeps Toha and non-MSV armies at bay with min-6 and being structure based. Overall, I think I like the list, but I will be tweaking the night one and putting the Montesa ability or duo into my regular roster of lists. Overall, it was a great day and I really want more games after, so I'm going to push for the Glasgow locals to get more games. And that was my video on the Highland Brawl, about a month after we had the tournament, but I had to build a new PC, took on a new upload schedule, and really just had to balance things. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know how your last tournament went, and remember to like and subscribe for more. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, I'll see you next time.